Hello, my name is Nemo and damn, it's now been a full year since Ruina released and we have finally gotten to the end of it. Man, a long journey for sure, but yeah. Anyhow, today I wanted to talk a bit about the game, just to give my thoughts about it. This is not going to be like a video essay or like a review because for one, I can't be fucking bothered to make one. Somebody else can make that for me. And for two, I'm very biased about the game because I really like this game, so I won't be able to give it a normal criticism. The way this video is going to work is I am sitting here and I'm just going to talk about the game. I have no notes written down, so it's all just going to be improvised. So what I'm gonna do is first I'm gonna give a little bit of a summary about the game, and then I'm gonna get into the game itself and I'm gonna talk about each segment. I am going to try to keep it as spoiler free as possible, but if I do end up talking about spoilers, I will say beforehand this is the part where I'm gonna talk about spoilers. So for now, for people who just wanna get in and wanna see what Ruina is about, I'll try to keep it as spoiler free as possible. So you might see some parts where I start fucking up some things that I say, or stuttering, stuff like that. I'll try to here you go already. I'll try to edit that out or re-record that, but excuse me if I do stutter or say dumb shit during the video. But yeah, this video is going to be mostly an audio experience. Well, mostly going to just be audio, but I will try to edit something for the video. I already have a bit of a background video recorded, which is me burning 10,000 sweeper books that I collected. All legit, by the way. I'm very proud of that achievement. It did take me about 60 hours to get all those books, but that's not important. Well, I think that I now want to start talking about the fucking video instead of just giving an intro about it. So thanks for listening to this, and I'll start talking about the game. This segment is going to be very short, so I'm gonna give a very quick summary of it, gameplay wise. So, gameplay wise, Life of Ruina is a turn-based RPG that utilizes a lot of mechanics from card games. So, for example, deck building. The gameplay itself is very centered around dice rolls, so there is a lot of luck involved, but it's not just a pure luck game. There's actually strategy involved where you can actually turn the tide no matter what. For the story part, the game basically turns into a visual novel where it's mostly centered around world building, but it's also centered around introducing characters. So you can actually see what their motives are, what their personalities and stuff like that. But there's way more depth into that, but that's just the basics for the story. So that is a quick summary of the game. I know it's a very bare bones descriptions, but that is mostly what it is genre wise and gameplay wise. I do have to state that this game is a sequel to Lobotomy Corporation, so for anybody that wants to get into Life of Ruina, they have to play Lobotomy Corporation. Don't listen to people that tell you to just look at the story online. It is better to experience Lobotomy Corporation yourself, since Life of Ruina is not a standalone game. This is a sequel to Lobotomy Corporation. It is stated on the Steam page that this is a sequel to Lobotomy Corporation. It's all the way down on the very last line, and a lot of actual publications that were talking about Life of Ruina or mentioned Life of Ruina during its reveal on the Game Pass did not mention anything about the game or that it was a sequel to anything. What most people did for when it got announced for the Game Pass was just take the first line of the Steam page and put it on their fucking little article, which, thank you journalism. I went a little bit of a rant there, sorry, but yeah. If you are interested in Life of Ruina, you have to play Lobotomy Corporation. Don't just fucking skip Lobotomy Corporation. For many people, they may not like management games, but do actually give this one a shot. At first glance, you may not like it, but there may be more for you in store than what you can actually see. So yeah, don't watch the story online on a little YouTube video, actually play the game. Anyhow, this video isn't about Lobondi Corporation, it's about Ruina, so I'll leave the Lobondi Corporation talk to other people. I'm too fucking lazy to do that, so yeah. Now, let's talk more about the game, shall we? So, like I've said before, I'm going to talk about the parts of the game in different segments. So, right now, I'm going to talk about the visual style, art style, visual presentation, whatever you may call it. And then afterwards, I'll talk probably about the gameplay and other stuff like that. But for now, I'm going to talk about the visual presentation of the game. So, if you look at the main banner that they use, like the main screen or like some of the UI from in the game, to me it feels very high class, you could say, like elite. Like it has this form of elegance that you could see like some Victorian style works, but that's just how I see it. I feel that this type of elegance is very intriguing and very nice to look at. But that's a style of the game. Now the actual in the game type of art style or visual style is split up into like two big chunks. One of them is for the gameplay style, which I'll put up on the screen now. You can see it's very chibi cutie style, very, not to put it in a bad way, minimalistic. And then you have the parts for the visual novels, the card arts, and for the CGs, which for the visual novel segments are very detailed and you can see the emotion on the character's face. You can feel the atmosphere around them. You can see what the background, it all comes down into giving a certain emotion about the type of the scene. I feel like the contrast of these two type of visual styles go very well hand in hand. So for one style, it's the one that you use during the gameplay, so you know, okay, now it's time for me to think about what I need to do, strategizing, stuff like that. And then for the story segments, you have a very rich in style, very rich in substance type of visual presentation, so that you can get yourself more involved in the story. I think both of these art styles are very good and they complement the game a lot, and yeah, I really like them a lot. Artists of the game have done a great job. Well, that was the art style part. Let's continue on to... Now we're gonna get a little bit into the sound design. So that's gonna be like sound effects and music. So first off, for the sound effects, I don't even have to explain why it's good. Have you even fucking heard the dice snapping sound? Like, listen to this. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. Also for the other segments of the game, like slashing, clash, bang. Very heavy hitting, very good sound effects, especially this one. Yeah, the click. It's what dreams are made out of. Now let's get into the music finally. Like the art styles, I would say that the music is divided into two segments. One made by Mili and one made by both Studio EIM and some bits from Dark Fantasy Studio, which, by the way, rest in peace, Dark Fantasy Studio did an awesome job with Lobondi Corporation. So much respect for them. Sun and Moon is such a great song and it's with so much emotion. I will miss them. Anyhow, the music is to two segments. The Mili segments get used for mostly main story boss battles, and the other segments gets used for like everything else, so like just background music during both story segments and battle segments. I should have some background music playing through these videos, and that part is done by Studio EIM. Studio EIM do a great job at very much making different types of music, because some songs may sound similar, but they have a different type of genre attached to them. So the best way I feel to explain this is by just letting you listen to it. So here you have Malkuth. You can feel it's very upbeat, high energy type of piano feel. Then you have Yeshots, who you can tell is very electronical. Netsack is very groovy, very jazzy. Tippereth is like, you could say, very a form of experimental classical. And then you have Chesed, who has a bit of a fusion between orchestral and very slow electronic. And then you have Gabura, who I feel is pretty self-explanatory. But yeah, you can tell by this how much the themes actually vary. For the people who enjoy different types of music, I feel like there is something in the game for everybody. Now, let's talk about Mili. Mili is, and I quote, a classical indie Japanese band who are mostly known by people for their work on the Goblin Slayer anime opening and for their own songs, for example, RTRT, World Execute Me, and by far my favorite, Galahad and Scientific Witchery. So what happened is that Project Moon contracted them to work on Ruina. They made 6 songs for the game. For the longest time it was rumored to be around 7 or 8, but that rumor now has been debunked and we can see that there were 6 songs. 6 what? 6 what? As of editing this, it's currently the 30th of May. 2 days ago, on the 28th of May, they released another fucking Mili song. So yeah, the rumor was real. There were 7 Mili songs contracted. I'm keeping this in because I thought it was very funny just to that I have this recorded. I was so sure it was only 6 and it turns out to be another one. Which all of them were amazing. Like I mentioned before, the Mili songs are mostly used for the boss themes, for the main story, but with one exception, that being the song that they used for the opening, String Theocracy. Anyhow, all of those songs, you can tell how much work and how much passion they were put into them. All of those songs make the experience so much better and so much more enjoyable. It goes perfectly in hand, especially for the ones during the boss fights. During a boss fight, you can already look at your scenery and see what is happening on the screen. You already have a good thematic feeling for what's happening, and then the Mili song kicks in. And then you can just feel all the emotions of the fight and all these feelings coming up for like, oh, I know what I'm supposed to be feeling. So it could be like either joy or fear or battle thing or sadness, just fucking depression. And all of those go so well hand in hand with what you're seeing on the screen. It's like they were made for each other, which probably were, yeah, but I digress. The songs themselves, like during the battles themselves, they already have so much emphasis on the wording, the instruments, and all that. But when you actually go online and look at the lyrics, man, you can tell that they were so invested in the game. Because you can look at the boss fight and then read the lyrics afterwards, and it just fits perfectly. Like it's insane how well they have done it, and I really cannot fathom having those fights without those songs. They are just perfect. I want to thank Mili so fucking much for their work. They have done such an amazing job, especially for, without giving spoilers, Gone Angels and Chill of the City. Those are like 2 of the best fucking songs they made. But yeah, that's the Mili segment, that's the music. Studio EIM has done such a good job with their songs. Mili has done so much good with their songs too. They are both fucking amazing and they're just the best. I love them both so much. That was the music. Let's move on into the finally, I'm talking about the game. Gameplay. So for this part, I'm not gonna split it up into 2 different segments because visual novels aren't games, they don't have gameplay. So for that part, I'm gonna touch it up later in the story segment. The gameplay part, you either love it or you hate the RNG part of it, or you can't fucking read, or you skipped LobCorp. It's very simple. Apart from that, there is no other explanation under the sun why people would dislike this game. I, for myself, think the gameplay is good. That's because I am based. People who think the gameplay is bad are cringe and also brain dead. The gameplay itself, without getting that much into detail in it, because there's a lot to talk about, is, like I mentioned before, it's a role-playing game, a turn-based role-playing game with cards. But the way that it works is the cards that you use, you have to collect throughout the game. So you start off with very weak cards, and then like you get cards to use as loot for beating people in fights. So for example, instead of saying it's cards, we can say it's like you're getting new armor or new weapons or new abilities, new magic potions, stuff like that. It's very simple. Like the core is there. Just that instead of it being actual weapons or armor, it's cards, which you use to play. That gameplay loop of you do a fight, you get what they were using as a reward, and you use that for the next fight, it is very satisfying. I don't get why people say that this part of the gameplay loop is pretty bad. I felt like it was very well done. You do something, you get the reward, then you go for the next one. I feel that the main problem that people have with this is that there's a lot of power scaling and like it isn't balanced, which apparently like Project Moon themselves has said that they were going to balance some things. I don't know if I'm making this up or not, if it's actually real. I'll put a source on the screen right now. But for me, personally speaking, it just doesn't feel necessary because it's a single player game. Of course they're going to be power scaling. You're not going to use a level 1 weapon in a level 50 area. It just feels natural. Anyhow, that's just me not having that much of a problem with the power scaling. Back to the cards themselves, because this is mostly a card game, you can build a deck. And with decks come certain type of builds. Most cards have their own unique gimmick. For example, they can do some weird status effects, or they have some conditions for them to do something extra wacky, or they're just broken, or some of them we just don't talk about. Eventually you're gonna see yourself mix and matching certain cards to see what's the best for you, what's the best type of build that works for you. I should mention that you are not restricted to one deck, you have the liberty to have multiple decks, and even you can put some decks that work with each other. For example, like in gameplay itself, you have 5 characters, and you can have one deck that's a support for 4 of those other characters, or you can make 2 characters have those 2 decks and have them work with each other. For example, one of them attacks with this type of damage, and this guy helps him get more power for that type of damage. So it gives you way more freedom than when you only have one deck to build with. So yeah, that's mostly about the decks and building part of the game. Now let me talk about the gameplay part of the game, which is the fights. So during fights, something I've mentioned already before, is that during combat there is a lot of focus on luck, because most of it is centered on the roll of a dice. That doesn't mean there's no strategy involved with this. You can always play your cards correctly and turn a losing battle to a winning one. It's just that for combat itself, and for what the enemy does or what you can roll, it is centered around a dice roll. That's where the part where people don't like that, since at some point it just seems unfair. Like, you can just have such an unlucky streak and you might start getting pissed off at the game. Solution for that is just be lucky, but no. For that, I feel like there's still always something that you can build for you to always have the upper hand no matter what, even if you have shit rolls. For like example, you can boost yourself to have better rolls. So the RNG part of the game isn't that punishing is probably the better term for it. But yeah, that's mostly the RNG heavy part. Fights themselves always have these fun little gimmicks where, if you can't read, this is not the game for you. Because every single fight you do has something unique to them. For example, you can have these guys who are very centered on making you burn to death, and then these guys who are very centered on making themselves boost up and then crush you in like 3 turns. So you always have to change your game plan depending on what the enemy does. So every fight feels very unique and very fresh, so that way the gameplay loop doesn't feel that bogged down. So yeah, that's mostly about the gameplay. So I covered the basics. Now I'm gonna move on to probably now the last 2 segments, which are the story and the characters. And oh boy, this is probably gonna be a long talk. I sat here now for 2 days trying to think about how I can talk about this segment, since this is the segment which I dread the most. There's just a lot to talk about and so little to actually say. Man, so I'm just gonna try to do this completely improvised. This one I don't think I'm gonna rework. The others I have reworked before, but just bear with me for this one. The characters in the game themselves, there are a lot of characters in the fucking game. There are over 100, and the way the story implements these characters in the game, it doesn't feel like they have little screen time. They have literal little screen time, because you can see 3 new characters. They will have 5 lines of dialogue, and then you're up to the next one. But those 5 lines of dialogue and the way they handle it themselves, they feel so alive, and you can tell the character. Also, when you actually get their key page and then read their story, you can feel how much attention and detail was put to even the shittiest of characters, like the ones that have the little attention. It's all feels naturally equal. Like, some characters later on, of course, are gonna have more screen time or more say in the story, but that doesn't mean that the ones before were not memorable. All of these characters are memorable. The very beginning, I feel, is the weakest, since it's most of the tutorial segment, so they aren't that memorable later on. But starting after Urban Plague, like chapter 3, every single character from that is memorable. Like, due to their unique designs, their speaking patterns, the way that they act, like, they feel unique. You can't point at one of these characters to say, oh, this one's just a copy-paste of this character. No, there's no example of that. They may have the same type of archetype, but their actions speak otherwise. And that's something that I'm so amazed with, because I don't know what type of other game I've experienced that does it, of having somebody with such a small role have such a memorable impact. They are just there to advance the story, but they're not some faceless or nameless character. They have actual designs, they have actual personalities, and that may seem like an overstatement for other games that also do this, but I feel that Ruina and Project Moon, they have a very, very tight budget, and them still putting almost all of their resources into giving every single character something new is so fascinating. That's something that really amazes me about the main story. What I've mentioned about that is mostly for the side characters in the game. The main characters, like Roland, Angela the Separath, and some other characters which I won't mention for spoiler reasons, all get way more screen time, and of course those will be more memorable than others. But that does not mean that the ones before are not memorable at all. Talk about main characters. Roland. Roland is probably my favorite main character in any work I've experienced. Maybe it's because I don't experience a lot of works, or maybe I'm just not that well invested in other games or media. But I'm saying but a lot, excuse me for that. Roland, the way Roland is written, he's such an interesting character. He's such a well-beloved character. He's just a Chad. On the surface, and like at the start of the game, he may seem like the type of character, like your typical protag, just the guy you're rooting for and who you're playing as. But I'll tell you now, and I'm not gonna get into spoilers, he's such a complex character. He has so much depth written into him, and so much soul, for lack of better term. It's something you have to experience yourself. You have to see how Roland actually develops and how good his character is. So for the people who haven't played Ruina, I'm not gonna get deeper into that here. You have to experience it yourself, and you will see what I mean probably. Hopefully. But yeah, that's mostly talk about Roland. The Separath are the characters from my corporation, so we already know who these characters are and what their personalities are like. But it's still very enjoyable to see them in this new art style and these new surroundings. It's just so pleasant to have them back, and it's just very nice to see them, and they add a lot to the story. Anyhow, that's the characters part. The story part, I may keep it a bit shorter because it's something that I don't want to spoil, but the way it works, I would say, is you have the main story, which is with them fighting guests and those type of battles, and then you have the library story, which is how you see the library grow and bloom. It's at the beginning, I can understand that it's very slow and mostly centered on the world building, but eventually you're gonna reach later on and you can see, oh wow, this is kinda Kino. But yeah, those are my thoughts about the story. I could have gone way more about this in depth, but I don't want to spoil. So that's everything I mostly want to talk about for the spoiler-free part. So I still want to talk about one more thing, but there's no way in hell I can actually talk about that without spoiling literally everything about the game. So for the people who haven't experienced the game or who are really interested in Ruina and don't know if they should buy it, I would say buy it on sale or full price, whichever way you want, and actually give it a go, give it a try, and see maybe if you really like it. If you get a little bit, if you get really frustrated with some of the gameplay or with some of the mechanics in this, try to seek people who have already played the game to help you out with some stuff, because I've seen so many examples of people who just hated the game because they didn't know what they were doing, and then somebody reached out to them and helped them a bit with what they were doing and where they were going wrong, and they ended up loving the game. So yeah, for those who have actually sat through my thoughts and actually haven't played the game, first I want to say thank you a lot for listening to me just talk about my favorite game, and I hope to see you guys actually play the game. Now, for the rest of us, there's one thing that makes this experience stand out like no other experience. And we all know what it is, so let's get into it. I realized that a lot of people haven't played through Library of Arena during its early access phase and only have played it during the full release. So this next segment might be a bit new to them. I'll try to explain. I really want to talk about the journey of Ruina. For the people who don't know how it worked during the early access phase, every week we would get a new update. Those updates weren't like small content updates with like only bug fixes or like, oh, we only added like 3 new cards or implemented 2 new passives. No. There were times that happened, but those were pretty rare. The way the new updates worked was a weekly update on Friday with new story. It was always a continuation of the story. So we would have new characters introduced, new motives introduced, new dialogue, and then we have entirely new key pages, entirely new combat pages, entirely new passive, new gimmicks, all that. Just something to continue the story. Yeah, on the surface, it did have some bugs here and there. There were some problems here and there with it. But man, there is not a single person in this world who can convince me that that period of time of sitting in a voice chat or like going on a thread and just looking at people theorizing minutes before a new update drop was not the most fun and most best experience people could have had with the game. It was such a nice get together of people thinking, oh, we have no clue what could be up next. The only thing we would get at most is a hint from either their translators on Twitter or from Project Moon themselves, and those were pretty rare. But when a hint did drop, man, we were all standing there waiting, just seeing what could they do, what's gonna happen. It was just so much fun how many memorable experiences there was just waiting on a weekly update. And how much has changed. How much has changed. You can replay through the game and you'll see some glimpses of like old things like, oh, I remember when that released on release date. Like, people don't know that Lovetown never had a Mili song. There are people that actually experienced Lovetown with a Mili song. For us old players, it's very weird, isn't it? Like, you're playing through the game, or like seeing somebody play through the game, and then they get to that part, you're like, wow, that I remember when it wasn't like that. I remember when Lovetown killed me in 2 minutes because how OP it was. I remember how fucking broken Philip was. I remember how fucking exciting and how overpowered the realizations were. Malkuth realization, man, oh my god, everybody lost their fucking shit when Malkuth realization came out. Seeing all the threats and all people fucking screaming, oh my god, a boss rush, dot realization, think about doing 10 boss rush. By the way, rest in peace dot floor. I was a really big dot floor believer. The reason why Ruina has stuck to my heart so much. The experience of like having a serialized work in the form of a game is fucking genius. Genius of having weekly updates for the story. That's a genius fucking formula, which it worked for them. Weekly, they had 5,000 players open up the game, see what there was. The highest peak format I know is during the ending, not during the epilogue, but during the ending. Steam charts says there were 8,000 current active players, which is a lot for a game this fucking small. 8,000 concurrent players on a single player game? People fucking wish they had that during things that weren't the official release, during early access. The only way that would happen for other games is like if some random fucking dumb e-celeb got paid $50,000 to play it on a Twitch stream for like 2 minutes and Zoomers ate that up. They made that naturally. They themselves didn't have to pay other people. They put out the content themselves and people loved it. I loved it. My friends loved it. Playing through it on a week and sitting in a fucking voice chat just talking about how good the story was fucking amazing. Examples to give. Jan. Oh, Jan. I remember when the Index proselytes came out and we fought Esther and Gloria and Hubert, and during the story itself, it was, oh Jan, we know that you were faking the prescripts. Somebody wants to meet up with you. And then they leave you on a cliffhanger. And they were like, oh, okay, hopefully we see the continuation soon. The continuation was a month and a half later, which, in looking back at it, it feels so fucking short with the amount of updates we got. But in the moment itself, it must have been such a pain. But then there came a point where we knew the next update was gonna be Yan. Remember people saying it's gonna be Yan week? Remember all the funny posts about Yan week? Then Friday came along, and we were there, waiting for a new update. What's that? A new notification from Project Moon? Oh, is the update out? Or maybe they're delaying it. Ah, what do you mean this next update has a Mili song? Just that experience of like, oh fuck, this is gonna be big, was so much fucking fun, and not a single person in this world is gonna convince me that that was a bad business model or like a bad way to make an early access game. It was so much fucking fun sitting there in the fucking voice chat with my friends, just going through that update, through the Yan update, and us getting fucking depressed when the Mili song actually played. They were like, man, fuck, they really turned Yan into a fucking printer. It was amazing. It was amazing. Another example I can give of this is probably the one that hurt the most was after the ensemble reception, having the line, so Angela, you know what's gonna happen now, right? And then have us wait an entire fucking month with nothing, just us sitting there with, what did he mean by this? And then everybody's sitting again in a VC after having to wait one fucking month with no new content. Just again, just dreading, just cannot wait. Everybody was getting impatient. And they were saying, oh, there's gonna be here some delays. Oh, we have to delay. Sorry, it's gonna take. We'll try to update it by midnight. And we're all just sitting there like, wow, fuck, this is gonna be pretty big. We're just chatting. We're like, oh, new Project Moon notification. Fucking hell, Project Moon. That Mili song title plus thumbnail was the biggest fucking spoiler anybody could have gotten. If they know what the symbol looked like, they would have already known what the fuck was about to go down. And like 2 minutes after, the update actually released. And the funny thing was, like, when I played with my group of friends, that update dropped and everybody just fucking scattered. They all left the fucking voice chat saying, okay, it's time to play the update. And fucking hell, how depressed people were from that update. The Black Silence update, the Black Silence fight update, was probably the best update. Like, no, actually, no, not best update. I'll put it in my top 3, since I still think that either Xiao or Janwick was number 1, but this was so fucking good. Black Silence fight was so fucking good, and on release, it was so much hype. Especially just looking at a fucking thread and seeing people like already rip some sprites of either the ending CGs or Black Silence Phase 3 with Roland and Angelica. Just how much that fucking hurt for a character we had so near and dear, Roland, have to go through this shit. That update was all fun and games until you got to Phase 4 and you just saw this and the Mili music kicked in. I was this close to the verge of tears. It was beautiful, but oh my god, my will to live dropped by 20%. That was the most depressing shit I've ever played in my life. It was so fucking good. The card art for the fucking cards that Roland used, the fucking memories, that was like the smartest fucking design decision they ever had in their entire fucking career. It was so fucking smart, so fucking well executed, and so fucking painful that, Jesus Christ, it left such an impact on people. That isn't really mostly about the journey, that's mostly about the story itself. Now that I can actually talk about spoilers. You saw how much I was holding back with the spoilers, right? I just went on what I'm recording now is a 10-minute unedited cut with no rewording of me just talking about the fucking journey. Ugh. And this just wasn't with only like the big updates that brought us such epic stuff like fucking mini boss fights. This was with every update. Like, no matter how small, we always want something to talk about, something to like mess around with. Like, I remember the fucking Jannies being such a okay-ish reception, but Overcharge and the way Charge worked, and seeing people mess around with some very funny Overcharge decks, it was pretty fun. Like, I don't think that's a very good example, but that's one that I remember a lot. But anyhow. Like I said, it was all these updates, and they all released, and we never knew what to expect. So, even for the shit updates, for example, the 9/11 update, that update was a complete fucking mess, and people were, I don't know if I should say mad or fucking fuming, because I remember how many fucking death threats Project Moon got. It was very out of hand. If you played through it alone and you've played that and you saw that, you would have been fucking furious. But looking at the thread and seeing people just fucking shit posting with the passive attribution or like making funny decks, funny stupid fucking gimmicks, it just had so much fun behind it. Every single update, like even for the ones that felt weak, there was always something to look at. And that's why having it released episodically, a serialized work, is probably the smartest and the thing early access games should be. Of course, there are gonna be some issues with the bug fixing and stuff like that, but it having the serialized work, and even if you fuck it up tremendously and you have to roll everything back, there are still gonna be people who are very happy and always saw something fun about it, because you build that reputation of putting out new content every this amount of time, and then people just enjoy through it. Having a set schedule on when something new was gonna release. I know that one problem with Project Moon that I had was how very ambiguous they were. Like, we never knew what we were actually getting. I think that was a double-edged sword, because for something like the ensemble update, like us not getting rewards, that was like, that I would say hurt a bit of the player base, and they were a little bit mad. And like, that's something I should have clarified. But also leaving stuff completely unknown as to what we're getting next, that has both its good and its bad qualities. That's what I want to say. So yeah, the way Project Moon made use of early access by putting out a serialized work is the best plan any game could have. Serialized works to video games, I have seen now with Ruina how very, very, very fucking good this can be. I'm not talking like one game and then it has like a series of sequels. No. I'm talking about a very early access game who its story is serialized throughout the game. You buy this one package and you get a new chapter going throughout. Don't do this with a game that's already fully released and you're just holding back with DLC. Do this for something in early access. Early access games should strive to be like this. If they're very story heavy based, I mean, for games that have very impacting story and you're still in very early access, having it episodically released will always impact your game positively. Because there's gonna be a very dedicated part of the fan base who will stick with you no matter what. And that's why I love this game. The serialization has made this game my favorite of all time. there you have it. Those were all my thoughts about Library of Ruina. I know I've went on a, and I see now in the recording, a 20-minute unedited rant of me just screaming about the journey itself with all the spoilers. And for the people who've actually sticked here and listened to me, a fucking nobody who has a lot of energy just talking about the game, I want to sincerely thank you for listening to my thoughts. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. This was something I've always had very near and dear to my heart, so I always want to put into my own words how much I love this game and what actually made me attracted to this game. So I'm very happy that I've been able to make this project. But that's not important, since that's that, and this is this. Thank you for watching. Man, that outro sucked!